Budget and Audit Committee meeting to order. And it is Thursday, June 6th. The first item is roll call.
Trustee Silver,
Here.
Trustee Plum,
Here.
Trustee Audit.
Okay. Any public comment on non-agenda items? No. Okay. Approval of minutes from March 13th. Well, it looks like I'm the only one that was there. So,
I think that we can table it to the next meeting and figure out how to.
Trustee Aragon wasn't there either.
Yeah, can Steve recall
We
the
can ask,
situation?
there is a formal process, since this is now your first formation and this was the last committee, we could ask Alex what the formal process is of accepting these minutes into the record.
So,
We could do that at the next meeting?
yes,
Yeah, you can agendize it.
Sure,
Yes.
we'll table it.
table this. Okay. Next, we have the Lancer Point, Elysian/Banner 5-year renewal.
Thank you. So we've invited our Chief Technology Officer, Tanyaji Jamal, TJ, to come. We never want to come to a board and the first time we've seen a really large contract is at the board meeting. And so our effort today is just to give you a quick update about the renewal that's coming up with our Banner Lancer Point system. And TJ has a couple slides that he'd like to walk you all through tonight.
Alright, so good evening everyone. We are, or have been for the course of this last year, in negotiations for our 5-year renewal for our Elysian Banner 5. And we're going to go to the first slide. First slide is just our banner system is our enterprise, our ERP, or enterprise resource system that we use that manages all of our HR, business, student class activities. Elysian has been pushing all districts to move towards their SaaS environment, which is their online version of what has traditionally been an on-prem server or a cloud-based server solution. This will make it scalable, it gives broader access, allows it for more functionality on mobile devices or other solutions. But with it, there's a big transition that we have to go through, which is why this contract has had a lot of scrutiny on back and forth. As EP Jones mentioned, it is a very large contract. If you want to go to the next slide. That will weigh in totality as about $14 million, a little over $14,600,000 for a 5-year engagement. But as you can see, it starts off heavy, but as we do the
Can you
migration,
enlarge that? Is it possible?
you're not able to enlarge this?
Well, I mean,
Bottom.
Yeah, there.
Oh,
I'm not lefty, but
But
if
you're
you
gonna
do the
have to
slider,
just slide it.
yeah.
Take it.
I can.
it could be smaller than that. Yeah.
My left hand is not as.
is that better?
Yes, scroll to the left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Thank you.
Is that good?
Yes.
Thank you. So the large contract will be for the 5-year engagement, which is what the complete renewal is. Our annual cost will vary in price. This shows you 2 different breakouts for modules. The first one is what our traditional cost factors would have been if we had stayed with our on-prem or our hosted cloud version that we're currently running. If you scroll down for me, go all the way down until we get to the bottom total line. Right there.
Okay.
This one shows what our new SaaS environment that will be overlaying with the cloud environment for the first 3 years, which is where the cost inflation is for that initial as we're doing our migration. We're phasing it over 3 years so that we can take a change management approach to the district, have a conversation with the different shared government groups, and then with all the business units that will have changes that will take place. We try and take the approach of wanting change to happen with the environment or with the members and not to them. So we took a strategic approach in taking those slower steps to go through the migration so it's not a jarring impact for anyone. This will allow both faculty, staff, and students to have actually end up with a savings of almost $1 million per year, which will be ongoing because we will be dropping out the hosted cloud server and storage costs that we're currently paying for by moving into a full SaaS solution. So the recommendation would be that this would be approved at our next June board meeting so that we can move forward with the implementation and contractation so that we can roll this out to the district.
So what is this Lancer Point? Is it some operating system?
Yeah, so the Lancer Point is our main page where you go into our POSD. If you log into the main portal, it takes you to any of our business resources, whether it's for the business finance side where we're doing our requisitions and approvals, but it hosts and runs all of our enterprise resource system. The Lancer Point page is the portal handoff into the SaaS ERP system, which is the Elution banner system. Yes.
We not being computer people, we don't know SaaS, ERP, so for us, this is a good dress rehearsal. Try to
Thank
be, think layperson, non-computer person, to explain to us.
Okay, so I won't completely start over. So our hosted software application that we use that is running our Elution website, this is running in a server, which is our physical computer, but in a cloud instance of it that is owned and managed by Elution. So because of that, we're currently paying Elution for their hosted cloud servers, all of their applications and services that run on top of that. By moving to the SaaS solution, we're shifting from
Okay, SaaS.
software as a service. Thank you. We'll be transitioning from application storage to a software as a service, which to simplify it, it will all still be hosted online, but this will make it more web-based as opposed to application-based and just running on an actual computer. So it makes it a lighter lift and interface for users. It makes it more accessible for people to get access to it from a variety of devices, whether cell phone, tablet, computer, which works today, but in a very clunky sense. This will make it a more fluid, natural sense as if you were going to Amazon and shopping or going through and looking at your different metrics on the portal, or not metrics, different purchases, or if you wanted to look at your history or anything to that nature. This would operate in the same fashion, but for our student information data, for our business operation data, the human resource operation data, it allows them to have access to it fully in the same manner.
What are the privacy controls?
We still manage the privacy controls. The vendor would have a bigger onus going into the software as a service model. It shifts a lot of that security onus and operational risk onto them. But we have very specific terms and conditions that we put into the contracts under our service level agreements where we set the expectations that we want in place to make sure that they're staying by our standards.
This is on the web, right?
Correct.
So if our system was ever hacked, would the hacker have access to information that's posted on the web?
So the short answer is yes, but regardless of where that information lives, if we were to get hacked, it would still be at that risk. The benefit to it being in a web-based environment is it's now spread across multiple servers that are backed up and have the ability to be locked and also reopened up without having a huge onus on our infrastructure.
It's
So it
their
gives us
servers.
additional security, correct?
Correct.
Because they have it spread across multiple databases, across multiple environments.
If we just pause and just sort of say, Lucien is the company, Banner is the product, and what we brand, it is Lancer Point. So that's, when we talk about Lancer Point, that's just sort of our core system. Lancer Point, students register for their classes using Lancer Point, they pay for their bills using Lancer Point, they accept their financial aid awards. Every business or interaction, transactional interaction that students have with the college happen through Lancer Point. And then from a business standpoint, everything that we procure at the college, our budgets run on Lancer Point, our human resources systems run on Lancer Point. So we sort of see this branded piece really is the functional business of running both the instructional side, students register for courses, search for courses, and then the business side of that. So just think of when we say Lancer Point, that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
And then,
Pardon me?
okay? The sort of challenge or change here, the easiest way that I try to think about, you know, our current model to our new model. So the current model is a system that's installed on these servers that our people and the Lucian folks actively manage, right? They do upgrades to it, they write code to it, so it's very labor intensive for our staff as well as the support staff. When we move into a software as a service, we relinquish that responsibility from the district. So our staff gets released of a lot of time of this care and feeding,
TJ's folks, maintenance.
of all of those pieces, and they shift to this software as a service model. So when things happen, we're like, yay! So if you go into your bank application, right? And one day it's one way, right? There's this feature, and the next day there's this other feature. That's kind of like a software as a service concept. It's like the vendor manages that all for us, and our intention is to try to, where we can, shift the responsibility of some of the work that's not value-added work for college staff to do to our partners, Lucian, and then re-engage our staff to do other work that's more value-added for our folks.
That makes sense. Thanks.
And it's less expensive
Yes,
to host
over
it,
time, yes,
yes,
absolutely.
somewhere else.
So I really love the point in terms of once we get past that year 3, because years 1 through 3 is because we're running in parallel. We have the old system and the new system.
You're waiting for the
Correct.
contract, the old system to expire.
Correct. And then it's like, yay!
So why are we doing it now? Instead of waiting? Is it because you want to integrate it?
Well, it's
Yeah,
not
I don't
just
wanna-
waiting for it to expire, we technically would expire June 30th, if you not go forward with the renewal. But what this is doing is allowing us to have the time and effort to transition from one system to the other system.
Yeah, 3 years.
Correct.
Which is, okay.
So that gives us the time to do that, because it's a huge lift in migration and transitioning all the information over.
So there's no action that we need from you all today on this, other than we just want to make sure this contract is going to come up on your board agendas. We want to be able to proactively answer some questions in advance about them. So if you see it, know that that's what this contract is for.
Okay. Thank you, that was really helpful.
So did you have something you wanted to say?
No, she answered it perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And James,
Hi.
hi, what we're talking about is, item number B1, Lancer Point 5-year renewal, and it's a large contract, so Candace and TJ are bringing it to us to give us forewarning.
I like that.
Brief,
Correct.
Yeah, this is one of the larger contracts
Yes.
that's gonna come up.
I think this is the largest outside of construction
Yeah.
that you'll ever normally see for the district. Could be
do
this.
you use a Lucian banner at Glendale College?
We're using PeopleSoft.
Oh.
My God, you actually got it.
You did it, you knew it.
Yeah, I just turned in, I've used it for my grades. We'll just say, leave it that.
Yeah.
I'll leave that there. I have been schooled on it because it's not as intuitive maybe as some other tools. but-
So it is, James,
It
it
is
is
what
a $15 million contract over 5 years. So is there anything do you want to just bring up that slide one more time with the comparison of what we're paying now, just to be sure. So right now, if you scroll up,
Yeah, you scroll
we're
up.
paying about 2 now I gotta get my glasses on.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the first column, year 1, 24, 25, 2.093.
Yep.
2.093, so that's what's coming up.
That would be
I
if we
see, I
just
see how-
stayed as we are, and then
Mhm.
scroll.
And I can see across that it slowly increases.
So if you scroll down after to the second step. So our new comparative solution in the software as a service model is the very top one that you see comes in at a much lower rate than the 2.093.
there's that uptick because of they're happening at the same time.
Correct.
As a phase out or phase, something like
That's
that.
correct.
Okay, get it, and then it goes back down. So what is, again, I apologize, I've been, wow, really just caught up with everything. I've been teaching, grading, no, don't have to explain. But yeah, so I apologize for being, I really just like, ooh, today was rough, I'll talk about that later. But I'm here, so thank you for bringing me up to snuff. So overall, in the just, what we're saving is,
Just the savings will be almost $1 million a year once we get past the year 3 with the transition, the old server systems drop off.
after year 3, okay, so there will be an increase, and it'll be it's like a hill, you go up the hill and you're gonna come back down and level out like when you're riding a bike race.
That's correct.
So there is gonna be some,
So it shows you the bonuses at the very bottom line.
okay. Okay. I mean, if everyone knows.
So this will be in your packet, so again, like you all normally get the contracts log in your board packet. So if any other additional questions, like we normally have, you always can ask additional questions of us and we will share that back out to you all.
So in general, the benefit, again, in doing all this, there's a cost benefit, but also how about on the user end? Is that,
Definitely.
it's one that uses people.
So the interface will definitely be a lot more user-friendly, it'll be more intuitive,
Okay.
and that's part of the transition that we're pacing this out, so we have time to still introduce it, because all change, even positive changes, can be stressful. And so for a campus this size with the number of users that we're supporting from both faculty, staff, and students, we want to make sure we do a proper change management introduction, and take them through the basics of how that transition will take place, so no one's able to drop the game.
And then other campuses that use this, we comparatively, because I can remember again how I would use, everything was answer phone or.
You called it right.
We have so many systems, there's so many issues as a counselor, just being here, but there's so many different systems that were happening, and pulling transcripts, and there's so many things that we're using, I was like, oh my God, what am I using today? That just made things so cumbersome, just to have to. So I think for me, it was like a consideration of how can we consolidate, especially for counselors and others, that there's not so many tools that we're using, there's maybe a few, it doesn't keep us,
Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
yeah, it's good feedback.
So for this, it's gonna be, when people are using this, I'm trying to formulate my question. When people are using this, who's gonna be using it? Is it gonna eliminate some of that, having to use so many tools at one time? I don't know.
So I will say, having used PeopleSoft for a long time,
Right.
that our current Elution Banner Lancer Point system is, at least in my experience, much more user-friendly, intuitive, and a lot faster to use. And it all works seamlessly together. So it is, the system is not, better than what we are used to with PeopleSoft. Because PeopleSoft is actually a financial system that has been modified for everything else. Whereas Banner is a university college system that has been modified. And so it's much more focused on the work that we do at the college.
In their last presentation, they had close to 80% of the education market share as opposed to PeopleSoft for some of the other enterprise resource systems that are out there.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm just being too specific about it. So what we're doing is, this is gonna be better overall. Overall.
We're
Like,
always
as counselors,
forward progress in
Forward
terms of
progress, right.
consolidating, but
that's,
I hear your concern where in the past, particularly in your role when you at PCC
Yeah.
in the counseling role, there were a lot of disparate systems that supported the work that you did on a daily basis. I think ITS is doing a really good job working with our counseling department, our enrollment management department to try to streamline and narrow down the types of products that are supporting the work of counselors, and then placing that all in an integrated system, which is the concern point.
which is Just
So
not-
we will continue to make progress on that.
Okay. Good to hear.
Good.
Ruby.
Okay,
Thank you.
next, yes, of course. Next, B2, the 24-25 tentative budget.
All right, thank you all. So what we wanted to do is I wanted to run you through the tentative budget and just remembering that the tentative budget really allows us to place, a budget in place so that our operating offices can start working on budgets on July 1st, right? So we know that the state and the governor is still working through their details. They will formalize a budget in June and then get to work on all the negotiations and any trailer bill language about how these changes will impact us and affect us. But it's important that we come up with the information that we know today so we can place a tentative budget in place on July 1st so that our units can continue to work and operate. So we'll walk through that a little bit and then see if you all have any questions related to it. So next slide. We'll talk a little bit about the May revision budget priorities, our tentative budget summary, and then our projected fund balances.
Okay, can I ask just before you
Please.
start?
Yes.
I know Ryan and I were in a meeting when
Yes.
we went over this. It's gonna be kind of the similar?
Yes, so
It is?
we showed you the tentative budget of last year, just so yes.
Yeah, that,
So now this is-
that workshop we had, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
I can check out for a second and go get a Coke or something.
Oh,
Like a
okay.
Diet
I
Coke?
need a Coke or something,
We need
yes.
you
I need
something.
something.
Oh, I don't have regular Coke. I
Coke
have
is fine. Just something
unleaded.
that-
I have
something that
unleaded.
add life. for
Diet?
something. Yes, fine,
Right.
whatever.
We'll grab
Yeah.
something for
Like
sure.
I said.
And I'm hopeful this won't
Okay.
take us too long.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be flip. I
It's-
wasn't, I just.
We'll take fries.
Hold on, let me get my Uber Eats app out.
Wait, it's in my pocket.
Are you making a pun? No, I just, okay. It's like, in general, so this is gonna be reviewed in parts.
Yes, it'll be reviewed.
Okay, but I'm not saying that. I'm
so-
gonna find something that,
Dr. Gomez went in
Good,
and
thank you.
is running that for you. Audrey, next slide.
thank you.
No problem. So just so we know, as we got into the May revise in thinking about what the ongoing investments are, thank you, Dr. Gomez.
Thank you, sir.
What is that?
Fresca. Yeah, it's good. You'll love it.
Oh my God, I love Fresco. That's OG. Fresco's OG.
It seems so sad.
Fresco's OG.
So the ongoing investments that the California Community College is going to make is I'm okay, thank you for
Thank
asking.
you, appreciate it.
And keep my water. Is the base adjustment for the student-centered funding formula, which is 1.07%. So there's on our base that will be applied for for all of our unrestricted general fund, the apportionment piece, as well as a small number of the categoricals. The state calls it a COLA, we call it a base adjustment because it's applied to the apportionment number. So we'll get that. There's also a provision for a 0.5 enrollment growth, so, which is a little bit lower than what the state had originally projected in the January proposal. Which is about $142 million increased in funding. So if you think about this, for PCC's perspective, at least the enrollment growth piece, this is a portion of funding that we're not currently eligible for, but as we continue to work on our enrollment growth projections, this is when you exceed those pieces. So that funding is set aside. But the larger statutory COLA that's talking about at the state level is consistent with what we see with K-12. So the state is trying to be focused on adhering to the statutory COLA, which we call a base adjustment. So those are what's going to be the ongoing funding source for the California community colleges. The one thing to note though, even as the base adjustments are applied, there's still going to be work on the state's part to sort of figure out what we actually receive in that July and August timeframe. So we watch the intention. So our tentative budget plans with that intention, but if it adjusts, then we adjust for it down. All right. So now the state has also made sort of one-time investments, and so what's really great is that the governor and Chancellor's Office, the governor in particular, has continued to advocate for and focused on one-time funding for nursing, so we'll continue to see that. Now, we clearly don't get the 60 million, it'll be divided up, but what I think is important is that they understand sort of the importance and the investments that are needed, and so we'll see some portion of that. And
15 campuses will,
receive
will, 15, yes.
15.
We're one of those.
One
Well, no,
Are
we,
we-
well, it's a BA program, so they wanna create a bachelor's in nursing, and so, the pilot would be with 15 colleges initially, and we're not guaranteed to be one of them, but we are being very aggressive in wanting to
Be one of
be one of the 15. But there's a lot of factors that are involved.
Does that still have to be jointly done with Cal State, or it's a standalone?
This is a standard.
It's a standalone, okay.
Do you know how many colleges are applying for this?
I would think it
Yes.
would be a lot.
That's a good deal, either way.
But we're PCC,
Yeah, we're
so
good.
we're in a good position.
The metrics,
We're in a good position.
the metrics favor us. I mean, we would be close to like, the top group, but who
Okay.
knows?
All right, cool.
Then there's some additional one-time funding for, the Chancellor's Office of State is really wanting colleges to move towards e-transcripts. Fortunately for us, we've done a lot of work there. There's some pilot funding for what's called this common data platform that, again, small number of schools are going to be applying for that. We're not in that pool for the common cloud data platform. $6 million is for credit for prior learning, $5 million still for pathways for low-income workers. So there's some pieces that are still being considered for one-time funding even in sort of the fiscal conversations that are happening right now, right? Most of all the other one-time funding sources have been closed out. So these are the ones that are going to continue to stay.
And I want to make sure, Christine and James, you said this is for the entire California Community College system
All right, okay.
installers, not,
Just ours.
Which means it's not very much.
divided by 116.
It's a portion down, this is just about.
Yeah, we'll show you this summer our
Okay.
actual numbers.
Awesome.
Financial aid at the state level, again, there was a lot of conversation about Cal Grant refund, reform. That funding is currently not provided in the budget proposal, and it's a conversation that continues to be advocated for at the state level, but no current funding or changes that are in the pipeline. Next slide. These are the reserves. So if you think about, remember that the governor has to sort of think through, this is just to show you what it was in January, on January 10th, and then where it's going to be, and what happened in the May revise. And so the state is sort of thinking about how to fund the deficits or the lower projected income or revenues, tax receipts. In January, they had thought, or they had projected, remember, all this is projections, they do their best to project, and so when those projections don't come through, then they have to make adjustments. And so you'll notice that there's some adjustments for both 23-24, which is this existing fiscal year that we're currently in, and then for 24-25. So if you think about in January, there was an intention of pulling from the rainy day fund $235 million for 23-24. That's this fiscal year. It has grown in the May revise timeline, just again based on those projections not coming through, for it to be $532 million. That is what the governor, the state is having to manage or dip into the reserves for. And then again, January proposal, $486 million for 24-25. That's the new fiscal year that'll start July 1st. And then $381 million for 24-25. It's a little bit lower. Now, there was a little bit of adjustment that we are currently monitoring, that we're going to need to monitor really closely, which was the intention of the governor borrowing from future revenues. That is not going to happen now. So they're going to manage that in a different way, and for us it'll be a small amount of deferrals. What that means for us is that normally we get a schedule of when our apportionment revenue is gonna come in. It's a monthly projection. And so what we need to manage and monitor is how they're then gonna pay us back potentially in the future. We don't have details on that today. That's why we're saying this is tentative, this is what we know today, but as we're thinking through our reserve accounts and how we're budgeting for the next fiscal year, we're being very mindful that we may need to manage some deferrals as well.
So, just because you're new,
Right.
do you understand how deferrals work?
I'm assuming something is getting deferred.
Yeah, so like,
Is
let's
it-
say I
is
was
it that
supposed to receive $13 million this month. The state could say, well, we're gonna actually defer that payment that we owe you in January to August of 2024.
Wow.
So then it's incumbent upon the district to really think through what our cash flow is for the next 6-month deferral, or whatever the timeline is. The last time that we received a deferral from the state, we actually took out a trans loan to help cover any cash flow issues.
Because it's salaries.
Correct. And most of our unrestricted general reserve fund
Yes.
is salaries, so
Salaries and
we
benefits.
did that before.
Salaries and benefits?
Correct. We're unsure what we're gonna, I think we need to have more details on what the deferrals would look like before we have to make that decision, but we do feel comfortable we'd be able to absorb some level of deferrals. It's just how long, what's the amount, I think that's the data that we're looking for the state, from the state, and we'll get that in coming months.
And this has happened in the past, it hasn't
Mhm.
happened since.
2021 was the last time we received a deferral.
And
The
so you're,
positive is that the state paid back the deferral early, so we received those funds back earlier than anticipated.
And it could be a cut. A deferral is better than a cut.
okay.
So it's kind of crazy, isn't it, that you have
Yeah.
obligations to your faculty and staff, and the state goes, well,
We're gonna pay you, but
Yeah.
we're gonna give you an IOU.
yeah, and you can't
And
exactly
that's what it is.
IOU.
They're taking
It's
all-
an IOU.
Open up, you're like,
It's an IOU, thanks, I'll take that to the bank.
And then you're doing this loan, he calls it a loan, he calls it a,
We did a trans loan.
what's a transit, is that
It's
just
just
a
a
way?
specialized loan that we go with the county for, and only schools and other public entities are eligible for going for that.
Is there
It's-
some,
It's done at a group level.
is there some interest that we have to absorb, or is it just straight up loan?
Yeah,
Is it
there's
per-
some portion of that. The unfortunate part of the last trans loan that, this is way too much detail. The
Yeah.
unfortunate part last time is because the loan got paid off early, then we had some arbitrage, sort of like, there was some interest that was made on that fund that we then had to owe back. But at this point, we don't know, what we're planning for some level of deferrals in our budget, sort of tentative budget, so we'll talk through that a little bit. Which is the reason why we're thoughtful about our reserve balances, because that's when they would come into help. They would be very helpful if we did receive a large deferral. But TBD, we're
How much
watching.
notice do they give you?
They'll give us, I mean, we should know in the next 30 days. We'd be shocked if we don't. By the time that the governor's budget is signed, then the chancellor's office will figure out what the apportionment adjustments need to be. And then they'll give us a new schedule for our cash apportionment flow.
You plan for it,
We try to,
yes.
we do. Next slide. So this is just a summary. So this is the summary of what we expect with the state apportionment dollars, being the largest funding revenue that comes into the district. It's at $188 million, which is 84% of the general unrestricted budget. You have some lotteries, some state mandated claim, non-resident tuition. I'll say there, I think it's really positive. That number has grown in past years. I think last year, the revenue projections for that was a little about $8 million, and it's grown. So Olivia Liu has done a fabulous job in continuing to think through her strategies on growing international and non-resident as a whole. So I think that's a positive trend that's moving forward. The CalSTRS on behalf payment is just sort of passed through, we don't need to really get it, it goes straight to CalSTRS, and that's just an estimate and then some categorical student fees and other fees that come in as revenue. So generally speaking, we're at about $223 million for unrestricted, unrestricted general fund revenue, and then you'll see a projection of expenses. Again, about 83% of that being in salary and benefits, and then you see the other areas, supplies and materials, other operating expenses and services, which is the other largest, that's where that Elysian contract goes, and other operating expenses, as well as most of the contracts, the utilities for the college go in that line. Small number of capital outlay, we actually have a different fund for capital outlay, there's a small portion planned here, and then outgoing transfers that then we go to the next slide.
What fund, what separate fund is that?
It's Fund 41. So if you look at this pool, you'll see on the next slide.
I see it.
Yep.
41.
So these are all of the different funds. You have Fund 1, Fund 3 is our restricted general fund. So those are all our categorical funds are there. And then we have a servicing fund. Yes,
So
sir.
I'm trying to use my intelligence here. Restricted is, strictly, you're restricted to what you can spend that on, and that is like what?
Like veterans, like DSPS,
Okay.
like WARC.
EOPS?
EOPS is under restricted.
And then unrestricted would be anything that we have more flexibility to spend,
Correct.
or there must be
That's
some
what the board's
parameters.
budget is.
Correct.
That is what?
The Board of Trustees has an account in the unrestricted general fund.
But there are some parameters of that also that
Correct.
can be spent, right?
That is correct. There are rules for all of these accounts.
Correct, so, but unrestricted is something like,
Like we could use it, so like, let's take EOPS. We were at the EOPS celebration
Correct.
last night.
Mhm.
Their restricted funds have to service their students,
Right.
right? The programming pieces, they
Yeah.
can't just sort of take those funds and use it for a graduation ceremony that doesn't serve their
you know,
population.
I'm understanding restricted.
Yes.
Unrestricted is like, what are some of those unrestricted?
Most of our operating budgets are under the unrestricted, so each of the departments has an unrestricted O1 fund account.
Okay,
So even EOPS still may have a small number of, like a general account for EOPS under the unrestricted general fund.
this gives us more flexibility. So like Puente, when I have my Puente monies,
That would be restricted.
that would be restricted. But there's some, okay, I'll ask that. Because I know also that was partially funded by the UC system, but that's something.
Mhm. But like counseling is funded both through restricted and unrestricted
Okay,
general fund.
okay.
Like counselors, let's say. And then those are a host of different funds that we have. So the largest funds you'll see is Fund 41 and 42. So Fund 41 is our capital outlay, so we use our large equipment purchases, and those sorts of activities happen out of, facilities activities happen out of Fund 41. Fund 42 is Measure PCC. So the initial $130 million that we sold in July of 23 are in that fund. So you'll see both the beginning balance and the expenditures, and then the ending balance of that. The other large ones are going to be 62, so our property and liability. Our OPEB is 64. Financial aid is also a large one, Fund 74, which is just a pass-through. I mean, those go straight to, they come in as revenue, but they go straight out to students.
Right, okay.
And then Associated Students Trust Fund. So those were those accounts that I was saying have a little bit less restriction on. So whenever the college receives like commissions for something, they go into these trust and agency funds. And those funds can be used more with a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, that's what I had mentioned before, our TNA accounts.
Yes,
We
for
can put into, we can
Mhm.
put into it. I used to have a TNA for clubs,
Yep,
a TNA for the program, so if I was getting a donation,
you
it
put
would
it
go
there.
on there.
So like when our,
But there's also then there's,
yes,
What's
so like
72?
Fund 72,
That's the student
this is just
trustee
the
fund.
student rep fee, so they get charged an amount every semester. Students can't opt out of it. And then so Associated
That's their
Students
student
also.
fee.
So
But there's-
Associated Students is over and oversees both Fund 71 and 72.
now, what are the amounts again? Because I had forgotten. What are they charging each student for an AS and then student
I think it's $10, $10.
And, but they can only opt out of the one or both?
They can opt
I
out,
can't remember now.
they can opt out of the $2 fee, $1 goes to the state, $1 comes to associated students, they can opt out of that fee. I think they can opt out of both fees, 72 too.
Yeah, that's always, okay,
Explain 79 to
thank you.
79 is the larger trust and agency funds again, so all of the commissions that come in from like Follett, Primo Nosh, we receive commissions from them, Cafe de Leche, the Rose Parade come into that count and they get distributed between 79, and then the 76 is our irrevocable trusts.
Which,
So the positive, yes, the positive about the OPEB trust, remember you all agreed to and made that final decision to fully fund, we made those final transfers to fully fund the OPEB trust. So that grew from like, I want to say last fiscal year was about 19 million and now it's 34 million.
That's following you. Oh, that's,
That's it?
okay, good time for questions.
I would like,
Yes,
when
please.
you do your presentation in
Yes,
June,
yes.
I recommend that you mention that the Board of Trustees has its own budget.
Okay.
It comes from the unrestricted fund.
Okay,
And then to mention what the board can use it for and what they can't use it for,
okay,
and how much you projected for the 24-25 school year.
okay, got it.
And I guess the question is, if it turns out you have a board that is spending more than usual, it's not as though, my question is, if you budgeted 10,000 and it just turns out that they spend more, are they allowed to spend more, or do you start moving money around to increase that budget? And when you do the budget, is it just a best guess projection to just help in your financial controls?
So traditionally, we'll try to base it on like a 3-year average and sort of see what those accounts have done for the last 3 years to project then what their tentative budget is for the next year. There are years that are off. So you brought up a great, no, she actually brought up a great example when she started the superintendent president search. It is paid for through the Board of Trustees account. So that's not a normal expense that we would then augment that particular account to support that particular activity. I think in terms, so that's usually what would happen. If there is a business need, then the Board of Trustees
They're
works
spending,
with the superintendent president, who then works with us to then make the adjustments that are needed.
their spending drives your projection.
They're actually pretty, I mean, it's pretty on target. It's actually generally,
Isn't it reasonable?
yeah, I mean, we haven't had seen
But
it.
it's not a cap.
Have we been? Are we?
That's
Have
my
we been?
question. Is it a cap?
We budget and then we share the budget.
Okay.
We budget and then we share
It's
the-
flexible, is what you're saying.
We budget and then
You
we
can
share.
think about it later.
We work hard to work within our budgets.
Okay.
There we
We
go.
work hard to work within our budgets.
Which
And
is-
where there's a business case, where there's a need to augment, then we do so.
okay.
The legal fees, do they come out of that budget? No.
No, they actually come out of another account.
What is the legal?
They come out of the human resources account. We have a
Oh,
legal
HR.
fee account. So we place all of our legal fees there. So we have attorneys that do things for facilities for our,
Like Sam?
correct. And they come out, we just pull it in one location.
Oh, it's still out of HR?
Correct.
Oh, I see.
That's
Okay.
Just so that there's some centralization, you
Sure.
can see that that's been in totality as opposed to broken up
We
in
don't
my.
have invoices, fine.
We try to avoid that, but it's also a way to sort of better project what the legal needs are for the district if it's coming in to one fund.
Right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, the more I do this, the more I'll understand, so I'm still fresh, so to speak, fresh person.
First year.
First year fresh person, I'm not that fresh. Anyway,
First year, first time.
so I want to ask about the reserve. And I've asked this before. What is our minimum requirement, right? What do do we have in it, and what percentage is it? Because I've always, even when I was working here, was like, the board has, the district has such a large reserve. Why do they always have to have such a large reserve? This is especially during times that we weren't getting raises. So those are the questions. So what
So
is,
the reserve amount, let's go to your page.
and then what is the minimum? We got the three questions.
Yeah.
There's something.
So you'll see when it ever starts at a beginning balance, that is the reserve.
What page are we on? The one with all the
yes.
ten?
There it is.
Yes,
Okay,
that is your
there we go.
reserve amount.
Which one are you pointing to now?
Right
What's
here,
the number?
trustee Aragon, the beginning balance, that 49 million is your fund balance. That's your reserve.
The 49, I have 49.
Right.
Yep, that's your reserve, 49.
49.
Yep,
It's our,
that's your reserve, that's the beginning balance.
I was talking about the I was talking about reserve, I was talking about,
This is the reserve.
it's a reserve?
Yes. So what this is, what the board policy says is 18% that we must keep 18% of the unrestricted general fund balance in this account as a reserve. So this is about 24%. The great thing about the reserve is, remember we're gonna get those deferrals,
Right.
that's where
You draw from.
they come from.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
With your,
I'll-
with the
I'll-
board of trustees.
I think I'm gonna sit with you individually.
Sure, sure,
for
sure.
time. And, cause I'm talking about like that mandate that we have to have 6% of the budget has to be reserved in case of emergencies. That's what I'm talking about.
Your board policy says 18%.
Our board policy does something. Okay.
And
And
each-
so what is the state mandate, or what is it that we
State
require?
recommends, the
Recommends.
chancellor's office
The chancellor.
actually just came out with a recommendation of 18%.
So,
Like Waco is 3%, the county's like 5%, the chancellor's office recommends 18%.
okay.
Understanding that 18% is just 2 months of expenses for the college.
This is a little bit more than 2 months of expenses.
Our expenses a month are about $13.5 million, so yeah, it's 3.
Mm.
Remember, this is one-time funds,
Right.
so when
Yes.
they get spent, if they're not, this isn't like we get replenished.
Right, that's it, yeah. It's like our bank account, unless you,
We use the savings.
unless you
account.
find someone very wealthy and
Whenever we
then
have
put money in.
savings, they go into the fund balance.
I got it. Okay, yeah, I hear that. Again, because I'm just trying to ease my mind and when I have to speak to people about,
Yeah.
again, if it ever comes up, but, you know, we have such a large reserve and we're struggling.
It's like an
But
emergency.
we're good. I don't think I'm hearing that vibration right now from people. I think
That's
it's
great.
more like,
It's a rainy day fund.
It's,
Right, I get
it's
it,
like
I
the
get it. Yeah, I get
state's
it.
rainy day fund.
but the days that it was raining, I remember on this campus, we weren't tapping into that. It's like it's raining and we're not getting a raise. That's where I'm coming from, because I've heard that in the past. Not that it's gonna happen again,
Sure.
but I'm just preparing in my head if it ever comes up. Like, yeah, it's raining, it's pouring, the old man is snoring, and we're sitting on this money. That's what I was getting in the past. Oh, that's part of that. Okay. So now I know how to answer those questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Those are all my questions.
So
Thank
yeah,
you.
I would ask,
And thank you for allowing me to be able to
for
appreciate it.
a motion to recommend the tentative budget to the board of trustees.
So moved.
So one of y'all have the motion, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's
I
one
can't
of
motion,
you?
I'm just
I
asking.
I moved.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
And you seconded.
Christine seconded. All in favor, say aye.
I know it's me.
Opposed, motion passes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
All right, proposed meeting schedule,
Yeah,
Can you
that's
send
good.
out a doodle poll?
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
great. That would be great.
No, I can send out a doodle poll. That was just to establish our initial meeting, but I can send out another one. But are there any particular days that
like, are generally, so you generally want, like the first Thursday of the month, for example, if that is generally good.
I don't know what you said.
Yeah, and
My
I,
doodle is
But-
I'll
but-
send a doodle
well,
poll
I
to
do want to,
everyone,
just to
but
give some guidance, for me at least, I'm good. After next week, I don't teach for 5 weeks. I'm almost 6 weeks off. Praise the Lord.
okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
God. And then it's gonna happen again at the end of July. I'm gonna start teaching at the end of July into the middle of August. So when do we want to meet?
Can you send
Okay.
out a doodle poll?
I'll send out a doodle poll.
I'm just asking, do we wanna meet in July? Is it something that we wanna, do we need to meet in July? Do we need to meet in August? I wanna get to that. in
Our
August.
next, we're I will need your input for sure is, when we get into adopted budget.
So when would you want us to meet again? What month?
We always just keep a time just in case, and then we'll work
So
with
July?
the chair.
August?
Sometimes they get canceled.
They get canceled.
But should we, so should I be prepared to meet in July? That's what I'm asking. Okay,
Yes.
good.
I'll send
And
out.
is 5
Okay, good,
o'clock
thank you.
all right?
It's fine, this time is good.
5
It
o'clock,
just-
fine.
If it
Okay.
gets deep into July, then I'll be teaching, that's what I'm just trying to say.
Okay, any,
Okay. No, we want to go to the event.
It starts at
Any-
6:30.
Oh, does it? Oh, Pat.
future agenda items? No? Okay, how would somebody like to move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?